Welcome to Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity because here you'll find curiosities. I'm Wyatt Buckner of the Duluth News Tribune, and I will be your guide as we discover the unique and fascinating stories here in the Northland. Here we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. In this episode, we look into the eventful history of Esko's Buffalo House. Let's venture forth into Northlandia. Helping us to explore the past of the Buffalo House, I'm joined again by reporter Teri Cadeau. Teri, welcome back now on episode 35 of the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Teri. So how'd you go about finding this one, or what interested you about it?
This was definitely one that was on our list of story ideas. I believe frequent listeners may know that we have an ever-rotating list of story ideas that could potentially be used for this column. And I saw the Buffalo House and I went, I've always wondered about that. How did it come to be named that? Why is it the way it is and where it is and all the different information about it? So I decided, all right, let's dig into that some more.
Mm-hmm. And maybe for those who don't know, what is the Buffalo House exactly? Because it kind of serves multiple different functions, and it sounds like it's been around for a while. I'm familiar with the Buffalo House, but not at all with this unique history we're going to be talking about today.
Well, it's multiple things. It's first of all a restaurant, and it's a place that hosts many events and functions if you need room for like 100 people or up to 300 some people. So it's an event center, restaurant. And then also it is a place where you can go and park your RV and camp for the weekend. So it's kind of multiple things. It also in the past served as like a recreation point. I believe a kind of a petting zoo at one point.
Oh, really?
They've had all kinds of different things there over the years. They had at one time like multiple softball fields. Not so much anymore because softball isn't quite as big as it was recreationally back in the day. But yeah, so it's been multiple things over the years, and now that's what it is.
It's been a lot of things.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's had different.
And fun fact with the campground, it's actually filmed a movie there once. In there, it's not like it was sanctioned by them. We just rented out the plot of land and filmed a campground scene back there. It's a nice area.
Yeah. Well, the current owner of it, Scott Stoyanov, he kind of described it as it's kind of like a resort, but not a resort because it's not a place where you go and you rent a place. It's a place where you go when you have your own kind of camping things to go and set up.
Mm-hmm. Giant moths there though when we were there.
Oh yeah.
Well, we had like big LED lights, and that was like the worst thing we could have done because like I swear there was like a moth that was like Mothra. It was like just this gigantic like baseball-sized moth that and there was like a couple of them. There was one that like flew right past my face while we were filming, and I just about screamed. It was not a horror film, by the way, but like it started to turn into one a little bit.
It's only a horror film if you're a sweater because they're the enemy of moth. Okay.
Yeah, it's true. There were a couple of sweaters out there.
Fortunately,
Fortunately, they were being worn and they weren't being attacked. Fortunately, they were more interested in the lights, which now I realize it was a big error.
Yeah,
at least they weren't.
That's why.
At least they were LEDs and not like tungstens that exhibit heat. So no moths were like burned or anything. It's just they are attracted to it.
No, you could safely say no moths were harmed in the making of your film.
I feel confident about that. We were harmed a little bit emotionally by the sight of them, but the campground site was very nice, and that was years ago. So, all right, that's my tangent about that. So getting back on track, let's talk more about the origin of the Buffalo House, of who founded it, how it was founded, and how the name came to be.
Right. So this all goes back to a guy named George Stoyanov. You may recognize that last name because, it's the father of the man who I just mentioned as the current owner of it. So George bought this land in 1958. And he was a big kind of John Wayne Western fan. He kind of liked those kind of movies, Western movies and such. And so he had some big ideas for his land out there in Esko. And he had different plans. He had different ideas. He kind of wanted to make it into a campground. He kind of wanted to do a bunch of different stuff. And one of the things that he decided to do was buy a small herd of buffalo. So it is literally named the Buffalo House because there were at one point a herd of 21 buffalo living on the land there. I will say that did end in, 1979. They kind of, so over the years, maybe a buffalo or two would escape now and then because, you can't keep them penned and all, But in 1979, they kind of all got out at once. And the highway is, as you may remember, right there. So no buffalo, I don't think but it was not a good situation. So they decided it was time to stop having buffalo at the place.
So that mass breakout.
Right.
It's like Chicken Run, but with buffalo.
Yeah. But they decided to name their area there Buffalo Valley because of the buffalo, and then obviously then the Buffalo House became the name of the restaurant. So they started building it in 1968, and they originally opened in 1972.
Gotcha. And so talking about, there's also a buffalo statue there.
Yes. Yeah, so of course, because it's Buffalo House and they had all the buffalo at one time, they decided it was time to honor them with a large buffalo fiberglass statue. And so they contacted FAST, which is a very familiar name. If you've heard my story about statues from in the past, you should definitely look into that if you haven't, because it's fascinating to me. So there's a place called FAST, which is the fiberglass something or other, and it's located in Sparta, Wisconsin. And they make like pretty much just a good amount of the local fiberglass statues. Like anytime you see a pretty large statue, there's a good chance that maybe FAST was involved with creating it. One of the exceptions being perhaps the Iron Man that we just had the story on. Mm-hmm. But they created this buffalo statue, and much like the whole situation that happened with Moose Lake getting their moose statue, it was supposed to go someplace else. And then Stoyanov got involved and said, "Hey, what would it take for that to come to my establishment up north?" And it's there. So clearly, whatever he gave them, or however they
greased some palms and made some things happen.
I will say his son Scott does say that he's not sure how much of that story is completely true, but he believes his dad more or less.
The myth, the legend remains of how he acquired
statues and their kind of slightly sketchy ways of acquirement. It's fine. Well, this is years ago. It's over.
We're clearly developing a habit in the Northland of statue. Like one time is like, okay, that's a fluke, whatever. Now it's happened at least twice.
Yeah.
Like we might have a problem here in the Northland when it comes to how we acquire statues. Like
yeah, it's kind of funny. I kind of appreciate it. Once he started telling me that, I was like, really? Oh my God, this is Moose Lake all over again. Okay.
I mean, it's not terribly far from Esko. I mean, it's just a short drive. But
Moose Lake. Oh,
yeah.
I thought you meant Sparta. I was like,
oh no, Sparta's a bit of a drive.
It's a drive.
No, we were just talking about before that. If Sparta was closer, if it was part of the Northland, we would 100% do a Northlandia there. But it's just too far away. It's kind of an honorary member just by extension of how it's been involved.
It's been related, stories. Yeah.
It's been related, though not enough for us to go out there.
No. But anyway, speaking of snatching statues, this statue has also been stolen multiple times by different teens, mostly teenagers, looking to have fun because it sits on a large trailer. So it is...
The means are there.
Yeah. And they do take it with them whenever they go into a parade, like in West Duluth or in Carlton or Cloquet, wherever they're participating in a parade. So it's a very iconic thing. It's something that you see as you're driving up to Duluth on I-35. And so it's pretty iconic. It's pretty recognizable. And it's been stolen. It's been painted. It's been a lot of things. Thankfully, not so much in the past 20 years, but by 1997, Scott's father was kind of annoyed with how often it was being stolen.
Is there any, were you able to find a ballpark number of at least 20 times, 50 times?
I am not 100% sure on
a lot,
but at least enough times that he was kind of tired of it. He was like, okay, I like a prank as much as anyone, but enough is enough. Please stop.
Did you talk about how long it was usually stolen for whenever it was taken? Does it just returned every time, or
yeah, it was recovered pretty much every time.
Okay, it's more like borrowing.
I mean, it's pretty big.
Involuntary borrowing.
Yeah, but that's still stealing. So
that's why they're on the involuntary. It's all about branding.
Okay,
but no, it's stolen.
Yeah, I think they would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely a thing that's a part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so this story they wrote for the column looks into the history of the place. So you've mentioned a little bit here and there, but how has it changed over the years? So
for sure, biggest change is not having buffalo anymore. That's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Also, pretty big change. So the Buffalo House is not the original Buffalo House. It burned down in 1984. It was actually Scott's birthday. It was March 9th, I believe.
Oh, no.
And it took until 1991 to rebuild completely. They still had the campground going, and they had some of the other buildings up, but the main restaurant portion, it took some years to come back. That's not the only building that has been destroyed that was a chimney fire. This was not a fire, but another time, a different building there, I believe it was the event center, collapsed under the weight of the snow in 2012-ish.
Oh, so that's not.
So,
well, I guess that's like 11 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was around. It was fine, like but also
Kind of like the mall this last winter where it just caved in. Was it more of a flat roof, maybe, or is it just? I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't see a before and after photo, but yeah, that was a big thing. There was also, and this is kind of a side note in the history. It's not a huge thing, but it was also kind of the subject of a bit of a kerfuffle back in 2007. The Blues Festival that takes place here in Duluth, in Bayfront every year. In fact, it's called the Bayfront Blues Fest, right? It was not going to be in Bayfront that year for a little. It was planned, like they'd come to some disagreement with the city, and so they were looking for other places to take the festival, and they looked at, and the Buffalo House said, yeah, you can take it here. And in fact, they even there was a wedding planned for the weekend that the Blues Fest was going to be happening, and they literally told the people that were planning the wedding, like, hey, we're gonna have the Blues Fest, so sorry about your wedding.
Wait, you can't do that.
I think they offered them a different weekend or whatever, but yeah, basically that was.
I mean, how far in advance was this?
It doesn't ultimately matter. This was in like March or April of that year that they were making these plans. It doesn't ultimately matter
a few months.
Because in the end, it didn't happen.
Okay.
The city and the Blues Fest came to an agreement, and they were able to have it at Bayfront again that year, and so Buffalo House was not a thing. There was a lot of people very upset about it. They were like, half the point of going to the Blues Fest is going to Bayfront. So enough people were upset, enough agreement was come to, and they decided to not have it there. But that was a interesting bit of history that I stumbled upon in our archives. I was like, I'd never heard of that. That's interesting.
One of those like drama adjacent stories where you're not actually really involved in the real drama itself, though I guess they would have had some drama with moving a wedding months before. But in terms of like the actual Blues Fest, they weren't really involved in that drama. Just I feel like probably amped it a little bit because.
Oh, the Buffalo House? Yeah. They were like, yeah, you can take it here. That's fine. Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought it was. I was like, that's an interesting story.
And what is it about the story that you think makes it fit into Northlandia? Obviously, we have some tie-ins with some statue history, and I guess we're establishing there's a pattern of theft and redirecting of statues and
acquirement of statues. So it's a very unique fixture. It's a place that's been here since they opened in 1972. That's a long time for them to be here and be a fixture in the community and be a place that you go and play softball at for many years, or a place that you go and camp at every year. It's just a fixture. It's a place that has a unique history. I mean, not many places can say, oh yeah, we're called the Buffalo House because we had buffalo. That was legit a thing that we used to do. I don't think many places can say that about their past. So it's a place that cemented itself in the regional history.
Of all because you were aware of the Buffalo House before, and obviously it was on our spreadsheet for a bit there. What surprised you the most of all the things you learned about? Because we covered a lot here. What was the thing that made you go like, wait, what? When did that happen? That was a thing?
I think talking about the petting zoo was kind of an interesting thing. I was like, I knew they had buffalo, but I was like, you didn't let them pet the buffalo, right? And Scott was like, no, not really. But we had like deer and some other animals that were there, and people could just, it was a thing.
They had deer?
Yeah, they had deer and other animals that they could have as, I don't know if it was necessarily petting, but you could look at them and see them. And they also obviously had the buffalo that you could look at. And it was a part of it that I was like, okay, that's different. I didn't expect that. Also, the fact that the statue. Anyway.
Yeah, and how it ties into.
I was like, obviously being statues, I'm gonna have to ask about this.
The unofficial part 2 of the statue series.
Very small, very small. We'll do more later. It's
part 3 if
thing.
you kind of include the Iron Man, but I guess we like our statues here in the Northland.
We like statues.
Fortunately, that one has not been stolen. Knock on wood.
I mean,
that'd be a pretty big
way.
steal. It's literally steel.
Did you get to go there at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's huge.
Because it's so big. There's no moving that.
Yeah.
Without
without getting caught.
That's not a thing. Oh, that's a huge one.
That is not an open challenge to anybody to do it. Don't. We do not condone thievery or vandalism.
You couldn't even make
here.
an attempt. You couldn't even make an attempt. It's not possible. I mean, with the materials it's made, just not a thing.
No.
No, that's pretty solid. I mean, what is it? The 3rd largest freestanding statue in the United States?
I think at the time it might be 5th now.
Okay, sure, fine.
Or at least it says 3rd on the sign there.
That's why.
But okay. I think at the time it was built. or established there, but I
Sure.
think, there's, many decades
More
have passed
statues
since
are made
then.
every year. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Going back to the Buffalo House,
Yeah.
have you been to the Buffalo House before?
Yeah, I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I was there a couple times for the car show that they have,
Oh, yeah?
the Smalley Moen. Oh, God. Anyway, the car show that they've hosted there, because my dad's a big car guy. He likes looking at classic cars, and so we've gone out there, and yeah, it's pretty interesting place.
Yeah, it's a nice area. They got good food there. I'd recommend
I
it.
have not eaten there just because.
Oh, really?
We go there for the car show and then take off, but yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up there, Teri. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
Curious to see if you come back with. If we somehow circle back to more statue stories. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm just curious if that's gonna circle back around somehow, some way. You're just doing a random story about X, Y, or Z, and somehow it relates back to statues.
Unfortunately, we're getting into colder months of the year, so I don't know if I'm going to be in the mood to go look at statues right now. But we'll see at some point in the future for sure.
And thank you for joining us on this venture into Northlandia. To read the article for this week's column, as well as see photos, visit duluthnewstribune.com/topics/Northlandia. You can find all the episodes of Northlandia on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you or someone you know has a unique story that you believe could have a place here in Northlandia, let us know by emailing northlandia@duluthnews.com. Join us again next week and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.